All right, next on the list, box and whiskers. So this mysteriously named chart type is really good at visualizing statistical characteristics across data series. So it may not look like it, but it actually plays a similar role and a similar function as a histogram does. In other words, it tells you a lot of characteristics about the statistical attributes of your data set. So it will tell you things like your max, your min, your median, your mean, your quartiles, any outliers, all packed within one single compact visualization. So it's a really cool tool and a really cool statistical visual analysis. So one caveat here, this actually just got introduced in Excel 2016. So if you're using an older version of the program, you probably won't be able to follow along. I apologize, but on that note, I'd recommend that you check out Office 365. I promise I'm not a paid spokesperson. I just believe that it's a great value. Essentially, it's a subscription-based service that gives you access to all of the latest current Office products. So Excel, PowerPoint, Word, all that good stuff. And I think it's only 10 or 15 bucks a month. So check it out. But I digress. Let's get back to box and whiskers. So some examples of when you might use a box and whisker chart, things like comparing rainfall amounts across cities, analyzing distributions of values and trying to visually identify outliers, or things that a histogram would be really good at, like comparing mean and median heights and weights by country. So just one pro tip here, by default your quartiles are calculated by excluding the median. That calculation can be adjusted to include the median, but keep in mind that it might significantly change the result, especially if you're looking at a small data sample. So with that, why don't we journey over to Excel and take a look. Okay, so in the box and whisker tab, you'll see 3 columns of data. Sticking with the baseball theme here, we've got players in the B column, home run counts in column C. The data is organized by season. So to insert the box and whisker chart, it's very, very simple. In this case, I'll select column A, shift click to grab column C. That gives me all of my data. Pop into insert, and box and whisker lives in the statistic chart section, which is also where histograms live. So I'll go ahead and pop that in. Let's drag it on out so that we can see it a little bit better. And there you have it. So now all we really need to do is add a nice descriptive title. Let's call it top home run hitters. And go into chart tools, and why don't we add primary vertical for home runs. Now our audience knows exactly what they're looking at here. So inserting the chart was the easy part. Now we got to understand how to interpret this darn thing. So as you can see, for each of my series or each of my players, I've got a box, like a rectangle, and these vertical lines extending from the top and bottom. As you might have guessed, those are the whiskers of said box and whisker chart. So what the whiskers do is they show you the maximum and minimum values. So the distance between the top of the top whisker and the bottom of the bottom represents the spread from max to min. And then within the box here, you'll see 2 attributes. There's a horizontal line that shows you the median and a little X that shows you the mean. So what you can do now is say, okay, the bottom of my bottom whisker to the bottom of the box represents my first quartile for this data range. Distance from the bottom of the box to the horizontal line or median represents my second quartile. Top piece of the box is the third, and from the top of the box to the top of the top whisker is finally your fourth quartile. So when I'm looking at this, there's one thing that really catches my eye, and it's this really long top whisker over here on this player named Chris Dutton. So what this tells you is that there's a huge gap between his max value and his mean and his median. So if we actually look at the raw data, we can see what might be going on. Here's Chris, some clown. In 2011, he hit 14 home runs. 2012, he hit 12. 2013, he hit 10. Then out of nowhere, he hit 75 in 2014, followed by 8 the next year. So when you visually represent that with a box and whisker chart, it becomes very clear, very evident that that one home run season was a bit of an outlier here. So speaking of outliers, if we right click and format the data series, we've got a few formatting options that are specific to box and whisker charts. We can show inner or outer points. We can show or hide outliers. In this case, even though this value for Chris Dutton is very high, technically it's not an outlier based on how they are statistically defined in this case. You can also turn on or off the mean markers, and you can add a line connecting the means if you choose to do so. Last but not least, we've got this quartile calculation that I mentioned earlier. So in this case, if I were to calculate my quartiles with the median included, the whole picture changes. And in fact, now a lot of these values technically do become outliers, described by just a dot, where you no longer see that top whisker. So just a word of warning, if you do change these quartile calculation settings, keep in mind that they might totally change the story, especially if you have a very, very small data set. So there you have it, box and whisker charts, really good tool to help describe statistical attributes of a data set.